My name is Ella Hudson, and the day I got promoted should have been one of the happiest days of my life. Instead, by dinner that same night, I was sitting alone in my car outside my parents' house, staring at a message from my mother that made my hands shake. She had written, "Don't make this into something bigger than it is. You got lucky. It's just a job title." I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand what she meant. Because I did. And because I knew exactly what I had spent the last 8 years sacrificing to earn that job title. I had started at my company as an entry-level assistant, answering phones, sorting invoices, and staying late because I was too embarrassed to admit I didn't know how to finish my work on time. I had worked weekends. I had taken night classes. I had missed birthdays. I had eaten dinner at my desk more times than I could count. And after years of being passed over, criticized, and told I wasn't leadership material, I had finally been promoted to Director of Operations. The CEO personally handed me the keys to my new office. There was even a little brass plate with my name on it. Ella Hudson, Director of Operations. I was so overwhelmed that I took a picture of those keys sitting beside the plate. I almost didn't post it. Then I remembered my mother's reaction when I called her. There was no excitement. No, "I'm proud of you." No, "You worked hard." Just silence. And then she laughed softly and said, "Well, it's not like you're running the company." That sentence stayed with me. So that evening I did something I had never done before. I posted the photo. No long caption. No bragging. Just 8 years of hard work. Today I got the keys to my own office. Within an hour, people were congratulating me. My coworkers. Old classmates. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Even people from my first job. But then my mother commented publicly. And the comment wasn't congratulations. It said, "Let's not pretend this changes who you are." I stared at the screen, completely frozen. Then my younger sister commented underneath it. "Mom's right. Some people get one promotion and suddenly think they're better than everyone." That was the moment I knew something was very wrong. But I still had no idea how deep it went. Because the next morning my boss walked into my new office, shut the door behind him, and said 4 words that made my stomach drop. "Ella, we need to talk about your family." And when he told me what they had been doing behind my back, I realized my promotion was never the real problem. My name is Ella Hudson. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my life I believed being the responsible daughter was something to be proud of. I was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays. The one who called Mom every Sunday. The one who helped my dad with paperwork. The one who babysat my younger sister, Chloe, when Mom worked late. And when Chloe got into trouble, somehow I was always involved too. Not because I caused the trouble. Because I was expected to fix it. Growing up, my mother, Diane, had a phrase she used so often that I could practically hear her voice whenever I made an important decision. "Don't get too proud." She said it when I got good grades. She said it when I won an academic award. She said it when I got accepted into college. And she said it when I landed my first real corporate job. "Good," she would say. Then, almost immediately, "But don't think you're special." I spent years pretending it didn't bother me. Maybe that was easier than admitting it did. My dad, Robert, was different. He was quiet. Not emotionally expressive, but kind. Whenever Mom told me I was getting too ambitious, Dad would quietly say, "Let the girl dream." But Dad had never been good at standing up to Mom. He avoided conflict. Especially with her. And Chloe? Chloe was the opposite of me. She was spontaneous, dramatic, charming, and somehow always in need of help. She quit college after 1 semester. She changed jobs constantly. She once spent an entire month planning a luxury birthday trip and then called Mom because she didn't have enough money to go. Mom paid for it. When I pointed out that Chloe had a job and should probably save her own money, Mom looked at me like I had personally insulted her. "She's enjoying her 20s. I laughed. "You told me to start saving at 18. Mom shrugged. "You were different." That sentence stayed with me too. I think that was the problem. My sister was allowed to be fragile. I was expected to be strong. And whenever I succeeded, my achievements became evidence that I didn't need anything from anyone. My promotion happened on a Tuesday. I had been working toward it for nearly 2 years. My boss, Marcus Reed, had told me there were 4 people being considered. 2 were more experienced. 1 was older. And 1 had a personal connection to someone on the executive team. I assumed I would lose. So when Marcus called me into his office and closed the door, I braced myself. He smiled. Congratulations. I stared at him. For what? He laughed. For your promotion. I actually thought he was joking. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was the formal offer. Director of Operations. Salary increase. Private office. Management authority. And one line that made my eyes sting. Effective immediately. I covered my mouth. Marcus leaned back. You earned this. I looked down because I didn't want him to see me cry. I really did? Yes, Ella. He paused. And for the record, you were not the second choice. That meant more than the promotion itself. I had spent years believing I was always the backup. The practical one. The reliable one. The person you selected when the exciting person said no. Marcus handed me a small envelope. Inside were 2 keys. One silver. One brass. The silver key is for your executive entrance, he said. The brass one is for your office. I laughed through my tears. I own keys. Your own office. I walked in that afternoon and found a little brass nameplate waiting on the desk. Ella Hudson, Director of Operations. I took pictures. Then I called my mother. She answered on the 4th ring. Hi, sweetheart. Mom, I have news. Good news. The best. She sighed. Well, tell me. I got promoted. Silence. I smiled, waiting. I'm now Director of Operations. Another silence. Then, oh. I blinked. Yeah. That's nice. I waited for more. Nothing. So, you're happy for me? Of course I am. Her tone made the words sound like an obligation. Then she asked, how much are you making now? I gave her the number. She whistled. Well, I hope you don't let that money go to your head. My smile disappeared. Mom, I'm just saying. A title doesn't change who you are. I forced a laugh. Right. And don't start acting important with Chloe. I wouldn't. Good. She changed the subject. By the way, your sister needs help with her rent this month. I stared at my office door. You're calling me about Chloe's rent? Well, now that you're making more, that was the moment something inside me shifted. Not exploded. Not broke. Just shifted. I said I would think about it. Mom sounded disappointed. Then she hung up. I sat at my desk for nearly 20 minutes. I looked at my new nameplate. At the keys. At the salary paperwork. Then at my phone. One message was waiting. From Chloe. Heard about the promotion. Must be nice. No congratulations. Just that. I should have ignored it. Instead I replied, it is. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then, don't get too comfortable. I frowned. I had no idea what she meant. The next morning I would find out. But not in the way I expected. Because before I even arrived at work, my mother had already started telling people that my promotion wasn't really earned. And somehow, she knew details about my new position that I had never told her. I stared at the message from my sister again. Don't get too comfortable. Why would Chloe say that? Then I opened an email from Marcus. The subject line was simple. Urgent. Confidential. I clicked it. My heart dropped. The email from Marcus contained only 3 sentences. Ella, please come to my office as soon as you arrive. Do not discuss this with anyone yet. Especially not your family. I read the last sentence twice. Especially not your family. My stomach tightened. When I arrived at work, Marcus was already standing beside his desk. He looked exhausted. What happened? He closed the door. Then he turned his monitor toward me. On the screen was an email from an unknown sender. Attached were photographs. Photographs of my promotion paperwork. My salary range. My new job title. And a picture of the keys on my desk. I stared at the screen. How did they get this? Marcus shook his head. That's what I'm trying to find out. I looked at the sender address. Nothing recognizable. Then I noticed the date on the attachment. It had been downloaded the night before. Someone accessed confidential information. Yes. From inside the company? We think so. My throat went dry. Why? Marcus didn't answer immediately. Then he said, because someone is trying to make it look like your promotion is connected to a family member. I stared at him. What family member? He clicked another attachment. It was a screenshot from social media. A private group post. Someone had written, Ella Hudson got promoted because her family has connections. Another person had replied, everyone knows it's not based on merit. Marcus looked at me. Do you know who posted this? I shook my head. No. But I thought of my mother. Then Chloe. Marcus leaned forward. Ella, I'm telling you this because someone is contacting employees. They're trying to create doubt about your promotion. Can they hurt my job? They can if this escalates. I swallowed. Do you think I actually got this job because of favoritism? Marcus looked almost offended. No. He paused. I hired you because you were the strongest candidate. I closed my eyes for a second. Then why do they care? I don't know yet. He slid a printed page across the desk. At the bottom was a phone number. My phone number. My mother's phone number. And Chloe's. 3 numbers. 3 family members. My hands went cold. Where did you get these? The person who sent the email included them. I looked up. Why would they send you our numbers? Marcus shrugged. That's the question. I left his office with my head spinning. By lunchtime my phone was blowing up. Friends were asking if something was wrong. One coworker quietly asked if the rumors were true. I denied everything. Then Chloe called. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Ella. Her voice sounded angry. What? Why did you post that stupid picture? I frowned. What picture? The office keys. I froze. How did you see it? You're kidding, right? No. You posted it publicly. Yes. Well, now Mom's getting messages. I sat down. What messages? People asking why you're bragging. I didn't brag. You know how it looks. How what looks? That you think you're better than everyone. I took a breath. Chloe, I posted a picture of my keys. Exactly. There was a silence. Then she said something that made no sense. You knew this would happen. What? You knew Mom would be upset. Why would she be upset? Chloe sighed. You really don't know, do you? Know what? She hung up. That evening I drove to my parents' house. Mom opened the door before I knocked twice. She looked furious. You really embarrassed us. I stared at her. How? You posted those keys. They're my keys. You didn't have to make such a public display. It was one picture. You know people talk. I laughed bitterly. Why do you care what people say? Because family matters. I stared at her. Then why didn't you say congratulations? She looked away. I did. No. You asked how much I make. She crossed her arms. You've become very sensitive. Then Dad appeared behind her. Diane, Mom snapped, stay out of it. Dad went quiet. I looked at Mom. Why are you acting like I did something wrong? She stepped closer. Because you've always had this habit of making other people feel small. I almost laughed. Me? Yes. What exactly have I done? She didn't answer. Instead she said, your promotion changed things. I waited. What things? She looked at me strangely. You have access now. Access to what? She went pale. Just for a second. But I saw it. And suddenly I remembered Marcus's warning. Someone knew details about my job. Someone had access. I left without another word. That night I opened my social media post again. The picture was still there. Hundreds of likes. But one comment had been deleted. I clicked the notification. It had come from an account with no profile photo. The comment had said, enjoy the keys while you have them. My heart pounded. Then I received a text. Not from an unknown number. From Chloe. You should have listened to Mom. I called Chloe immediately. No answer. Called Mom. She didn't answer either. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Marcus. Ella, security just found someone trying to access your office after hours. I stared at the screen. Whoever was behind this wasn't just spreading rumors anymore. They were coming after me. The next morning there were 2 security guards outside my office. I stopped walking. What happened? One guard stepped forward. Nothing was stolen. That's not what I asked. He exchanged a look with the other guard. Someone attempted to access your office at 9:47 p.m. Were they caught? No. I felt cold. Do you have footage? We're reviewing it. Marcus came toward me. Come with me. We went into a conference room. He closed the door. This is getting serious. I sat down. Do you think it's my family? He hesitated. I don't know. But you think it could be? I think someone who knows your family is involved. That hurt more than I expected. Why? Because they seem to know things only your family would know. I stared at the table. Then Marcus said, "Ella, there's something else." He handed me a document. It was an anonymous complaint filed against me. The accusation was that I had manipulated internal hiring processes to benefit a family member. I nearly laughed. I don't even have a family member working here. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Actually, he stopped. I looked up. What? There is someone applying for a position here. Who? He slid the form across the table. My sister's name was on it. Chloe Hudson. I stared at it. When did she apply? 3 days ago. 3 days. That was before my promotion. Before I posted the picture. Before the rumors. I stood. She applied here? Yes. Why didn't she tell me? I assumed you knew. I shook my head. I didn't. Marcus rubbed his forehead. The complaint claims you promised her a job. I never promised Chloe anything. I know. But somebody doesn't. He looked at the paperwork. That's the problem. I went back to my office feeling sick. At noon my mother called. Did you hear what they're saying about you? I closed my eyes. What are you talking about? People are saying you used your position to help Chloe. I didn't. That's what you should explain. I don't need to explain something I didn't do. She became quiet. Then, maybe you should have helped your sister. What? She applied for a job. I know. And you could have made sure she got it. I stood up. Mom, are you serious? You have influence now. That isn't how my company works. It could have been. No. You've changed. I laughed. No, Mom. I got promoted. Exactly. There was again. That word. Promoted. As if it were something shameful. I hung up. Later that afternoon, Chloe showed up at my office. No appointment. No warning. She walked in like she owned the place. Nice office. I crossed my arms. What do you want? He looked around. Wow. Chloe. She sighed. I wanted to talk. Then talk. She sat down. I didn't think this would happen. What? All this. She gestured around. The rumors. So do you know who started them? She looked away. No. You applied for a job here. Yes. You never told me. I didn't want you to think I was using you. I stared at her. You are using me. Her expression hardened. That's not fair. Then tell me the truth. I did. No. You didn't. She stood. Maybe Mom was right. About what? That you think you're better than everyone. I felt tears rise, but I refused to let them fall. I spent my entire life trying to make Mom proud. Chloe said nothing. And every time I achieved something, you both acted like it was an inconvenience. That's not true. It is. She shook her head. You always wanted to be the perfect daughter. I laughed. No. I wanted to be loved without earning it. That shut her up. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then Chloe said something quietly. You don't understand what Mom is afraid of. What is she afraid of? Chloe's eyes filled with tears. But instead of answering, she walked out. That night I received another email. This time from HR. You are temporarily removed from decisions involving hiring until the anonymous complaint is investigated. My promotion had been official for less than a week. And already it was being questioned. At home I sat on my couch staring at the wall. Then there was a knock. It was Dad. He stood outside holding a small envelope. I think you need to see this. I opened it. Inside was a bank statement. A transfer. A large transfer. From my mother's account. To Chloe. I looked up. Why are you giving me this? Dad lowered his voice. Because your mother told me I had to lie if you ever asked. My heart started pounding. What did she transfer? Dad hesitated. More than $20,000. For what? He looked at me. That's what I don't know. I looked at the statement again. The transfer had happened 3 days before my promotion. The same day Chloe applied for a job at my company. Then I noticed the recipient reference. It wasn't Chloe's name. It was the name of a company. Company I recognized. Because it was directly connected to my workplace. The company listed on the bank statement was Harper Consulting. My stomach dropped. Harper Consulting was one of the outside firms my company used for recruitment and compliance. I called Marcus. He answered on the second ring. Ella. I need to ask you something. What is it? Does Harper Consulting work with our executive team? Yes. Do they handle hiring investigations? Sometimes. I took a breath. Does my company pay them? Yes. I closed my eyes. Why would my mother pay them? Silence. Marcus immediately understood. I'll look into it. I waited. 10 minutes later he called back. Ella, what? The payment went to a consultant assigned to your complaint. My hands went numb. You're telling me my mother paid the person investigating me? That's what the records suggest. How is that even possible? I don't know yet. I hung up. For the first time in my life I felt genuinely afraid of my own family. I drove straight to my parents' house. Mom opened the door. The second she saw my face she knew. What did you find? I held up the bank statement. You paid them. Her expression changed. Dad stood behind her. Diane, she turned on him. You had no right to tell her. I stared at her. So it's true. She folded her arms. I was trying to protect this family. By paying someone to investigate me? You were getting out of control. I felt like I couldn't breathe. What does that mean? You were becoming arrogant. Because I got promoted? Because you started acting like you were better than us. I shook my head. No. Mom stepped closer. You have no idea what happens when people become too successful. I worked for this. You think everything is about work. No. I think everything is about you controlling me. Dad finally spoke. Diane, stop. She ignored him. You know what people say? I don't care what people say. You should. He pointed at me. Your father and I sacrificed everything for this family. And I'm grateful. You're not. Yes, I am. Then why are you embarrassing us? I looked at Dad. Is this what you both think? Dad looked down. Mom said, your promotion was supposed to help the family. I froze. What? She continued. We assumed you would finally be able to help Chloe. So that's it. She looked confused. What? You're angry because I didn't immediately start giving Chloe my money. She's your sister. Yes. You should help her. I have helped her. Not enough. I shook my head. You don't want me to succeed. That's ridiculous. No. I pointed at the bank statement. You were willing to pay a consultant to hurt my reputation. Mom's face hardened. I never told them to hurt you. What did you tell them? She didn't answer. Dad whispered, Diane. She looked at him. Don't. He finally snapped. No. She deserves the truth. Mom's face went pale. Dad looked at me. Your mother was worried about Chloe losing everything. I frowned. What does that mean? Dad took a breath. Chloe owes money. How much? He looked at Mom. She said nothing. How much? Dad whispered, almost $80,000. My mouth dropped open. What? Chloe had debt. Credit cards. Loans. Personal debts. And according to Dad, some of it wasn't even from normal expenses. Where did she get $80,000? Mom finally spoke. She made mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Silence. Mom. She looked away. Online investments. Dad corrected her. Gambling. I felt my stomach drop. Gambling. Mom glared at him. Stop making it worse. How much did she lose? Dad answered. More than 40,000. I sat down. So this wasn't about my promotion. It was about Chloe's financial disaster. And my promotion meant I had more money. More influence. More access. More opportunities to fix the problem. But there was still one thing I didn't understand. Why had they targeted my job? Then Dad gave me the answer. Because Chloe told Mom the only way to fix everything was to get hired somewhere that paid enough to clear her debt. I stared at him. Here. He nodded. My chest tightened. She wanted a job here? Yes. And when I didn't give her one, Dad looked at me. She blamed you. I couldn't speak. I thought about every message, every accusation, every strange comment, every warning. Then Marcus called. I answered. Ella, we found the person who accessed your office. My heart started pounding. Who? Marcus hesitated. Your sister. The woman I had spent my entire life defending had been inside my office after hours. But when Marcus told me what she was looking for, I realized Chloe hadn't been trying to steal money. She had been trying to find one specific document. A document that could destroy my career. Chloe was taken into a small security room. I didn't want to see her. But I did. She looked smaller than I remembered. No confidence. No sarcasm. Just fear. Marcus and HR were present. I stood by the door. Why? She looked at me. I didn't mean for this to happen. That's not an answer. She started crying. I was scared. You broke into my office. I needed one document. Which document? She looked down. My application review. I frowned. Why? Because I wanted to know why I was rejected. You weren't rejected. She looked up. What? You weren't even interviewed. Her face went blank. Marcus stepped in. Someone submitted an anonymous claim saying Ella had already promised you a position. Chloe shook her head. She did. I stared at her. What? You said you would help me. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. When? At Mom's birthday. I tried to remember. There had been so many conversations. Then I remembered. I had told Chloe, I'll help you look for a job. Not, I'll get you a job. Those were very different promises. She had interpreted them differently. Or someone had made sure she did. Chloe, I said quietly, who told you I promised you this job? She hesitated. Mom. Everything suddenly made sense. Mom had convinced Chloe that I owed her. Then convinced Chloe that I was refusing to help. Then apparently convinced a consultant that I had abused my position. But why? Marcus walked in holding another file. We found something. He opened it. Inside were email transcripts. One email was from my mother. Another was from a personal account connected to Chloe. The messages showed that Mom had been sending exaggerated information about me for weeks. Things like, Ella has become unstable since her promotion. She has conflicts with employees. She favors people she knows personally. She may be abusing her authority. None of it was true. But there was one message that shocked me. Mom had written, if she gets embarrassed publicly, she may finally stop pretending she is better than this family. I felt tears burn my eyes. I couldn't believe it. Marcus quietly said, she wanted you to lose the promotion. Why? He looked at Chloe. Because your mother believed that if you lost your position, you'd become dependent on the family again. I looked at Chloe. She was crying. Did you know? She shook her head. Not all of it. What did you know? I knew Mom was angry. Did you know she was trying to ruin my career? Chloe covered her face. I knew she wanted you to come back down. I felt something inside me break. You helped her. I'm sorry. You helped her. I didn't know how far she'd go. I stared at her. You knew enough. She cried harder. I turned away. There are moments when anger feels like fire. This wasn't that. It felt like ice. Because suddenly I understood something. My mother didn't just dislike my success. She needed me to remain the daughter who was always available. The daughter who rescued everyone. The daughter who had no boundaries. Because that version of me was useful. The woman I had become, she had a salary, a career, a life. And most importantly, she had choices. That scared my mother. 2 days later, the investigation cleared me completely. The consultant contract was terminated. Marcus apologized for the disruption. HR issued a formal statement internally confirming that my promotion had been based entirely on performance. But the damage to my family was different. Dad moved into the guest room. He stopped defending Mom's behavior. Chloe entered a financial recovery program. And I stopped answering calls from my mother. For 2 weeks. Then one afternoon a letter arrived. Handwritten. From Mom. I almost threw it away. Instead I opened it. The first sentence said, I know you think I'm your enemy. The second said, but I did everything I did because I was afraid of losing you. I stared at the page. Then I kept reading. Mom admitted something I never expected. She had been comparing herself to me for years. My confidence reminded her of everything she believed she had failed to become. My career made her feel irrelevant. My independence made her feel unnecessary. And when Chloe's problems grew worse, Mom became convinced that the family could survive only if I remained responsible for everyone. She wrote, "When you got promoted, I saw your life changing. I was scared that you would stop needing us." That sentence hurt. Because it was probably the most honest thing she had ever told me. But honesty doesn't erase damage. Called Dad. "Did Mom mean the letter?" He sighed. "Yes." "Is she sorry?" "She is." "Does she understand what she did?" He paused. "Not completely." I looked down at my new office keys sitting on my kitchen counter. 3 weeks earlier they had represented success. Now they represented something else. Freedom. But I knew there was one conversation I still had to have. My mother had asked me to meet her. And for the first time in my life, I was going to say exactly what I thought. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday. Mom said she wanted to apologize. But when I arrived, I discovered someone else sitting at the table. Chloe. And on the table between them was a folder. My mother pushed it toward me. "Before you decide whether you can forgive me," she said, "you need to see what Chloe and I found." I didn't touch the folder. "What is it?" Mom looked exhausted. "Open it." I glanced at Chloe. She looked terrified. I opened the folder. Inside were financial records, loan statements, credit card balances, gambling transactions, and one handwritten agreement. My name was written at the top. I stared at it. "What is this?" Mom whispered, "It's the plan we made." My heart started pounding. "What plan?" Chloe began crying. "Mom thought you would agree." "Agree to what?" Mom looked at me. "To pay the debt." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I genuinely couldn't believe what I was hearing. "With what?" "Your new salary." I pushed the folder away. "No." Mom's face tightened. "Ella." "No. We're family." "No. You can afford it." "That's not the point. You could save your sister." "No." Chloe started crying harder. "I know I messed up." I looked at her. "Yes, you did. I'm trying to fix it." "Then fix it." Mom slammed her hand on the table. "Stop being cruel." I stood. "Cruel?" "Yes. You tried to destroy my career. I made mistakes. You lied about me. I was scared. You paid someone to investigate me. I wanted to protect Chloe. You broke into my office." Mom looked at Chloe. That was her mistake. I stared at both of them. Then I said something I had never said before. "You are both using the word family as a weapon." Silence. "Every time I say no, I'm selfish." I looked at Mom. "Every time I succeed, I'm arrogant." Then Chloe. "Every time I protect myself, I'm cruel." I took the folder and held it up. "This isn't family." I dropped it on the table. "This is control." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand what I sacrificed for you." "I understand exactly." "No, you don't. I understand that you gave up things. I understand that you worked hard. I understand that you were scared." My voice shook. "But none of that gives you the right to own me." Mom went quiet. I turned to Chloe. "You need help." "I know. Real help." "I know. But not from me financially." She nodded. That was when Mom started crying. "Please." I looked at her. For years that word would have broken me. It didn't anymore. "I love you." She looked up. "But I'm not fixing this." "But you can." "Yes." I took a breath. "And I'm choosing not to." She stared at me. "Why?" "Because if I pay this debt, Chloe learns that consequences are temporary." Chloe whispered, "You're right." Mom looked at her. "You too." Chloe wiped her tears. "Mom, she's right." That stunned her. Chloe continued. "You kept telling me Ella was selfish." She looked at me. "But I think we both depended on her because she always rescued us." I sat down. For the first time, Chloe and I were looking at the same truth. Mom had turned us against each other because fear made her desperate. And we had allowed it because blaming each other was easier than admitting we were all part of the problem. Mom stood. "So that's it." I shook my head. "No." She waited. "You can still be my mother." Her face softened. But you can't control me. She nodded slowly. And Chloe? She can still be my sister. Chloe began crying again. But she needs to rebuild her life herself. She nodded. I will. I stood. Mom walked around the table. For a second I thought she was going to hug me. Instead she stopped. Can I ask you one thing? What? Are you happy? I looked at her. For the first time I didn't feel the need to give the answer she wanted. Yes. She nodded. Then maybe, she struggled to finish the sentence. Maybe I was wrong. I felt tears fill my eyes. Maybe. We hugged. It wasn't magical. It didn't erase everything. It didn't repair 8 years in one afternoon. But it was honest. And for us that was the beginning. 3 months later, Chloe had paid off a small portion of her debt through a second job. She moved into a smaller apartment. She stopped gambling. She started seeing a financial counselor. Dad finally told Mom that if she wanted their marriage to survive, she needed counseling too. She agreed. As for me, I stopped apologizing for my success. I stopped hiding good news. I stopped downplaying my achievements so other people could feel comfortable. And I learned something else. Boundaries are not punishments. They are instructions. They tell people how they are allowed to treat you. But just when I thought the story was over, something unexpected happened. One Monday morning I walked into my office and found a small box on my desk. Inside was a brass key. And a handwritten note from my mother. It said, "This time I'm giving you a key without asking for anything in return." It had been 6 months since my promotion. 6 months since the post. 6 months since everything I thought I knew about my family had been ripped apart. I kept that brass key. Not because it meant my mother had suddenly become perfect. She hadn't. But because it reminded me that people can change only when they finally stop defending the damage they caused. Mom was changing slowly. She still had moments when she made comments she shouldn't. She still occasionally asked questions about my salary. She still struggled with the idea that I could make decisions without asking permission. But when I corrected her, she listened. Sometimes she even apologized before I asked. That was new. Chloe was different too. She became more serious. More grounded. He got a job in accounting. Ironically, she ended up loving it. She once laughed and told me, "I spent years chasing quick money. Turns out boring money is much better." I laughed. That might be the smartest thing you've ever said. She threw a pillow at me. Our relationship wasn't what it had been when we were children. It was better. Because now it was based on honesty instead of obligation. Dad remained Dad. Quiet. Steady. Still allergic to conflict. But he became more outspoken. One night during dinner, Mom started making a comment about how much my company must be paying me. Dad cleared his throat. "Diane." She stopped. Then laughed. "Fine." I looked at him. He smiled. "I'm learning." So was I. The biggest change, though, happened inside me. I stopped measuring my worth by my family's approval. I used to think success meant hearing Mom say, "I'm proud of you." Now I understand something different. Success is being proud of yourself even when nobody else claps. My office became one of my favorite places. Not because it was luxurious. It wasn't. It had a desk, 2 chairs, a bookshelf, a small plant, and a window overlooking a parking garage. But every time I unlocked that door, I remembered the girl I had been. The girl who stayed late because she was afraid of disappointing people. The girl who apologized for being ambitious. The girl who thought saying no made her a bad daughter. The girl who believed love had to be earned. And every morning I walked into that office as someone different. Someone who understood her value. One Friday afternoon I was packing up to leave when Marcus stopped at my door. "Got a minute?" "Sure." He leaned against the frame. "I wanted to tell you something." "What?" "You handled the situation with your family better than most people would." I laughed. "It didn't feel that way." "It rarely does." He paused. "Your promotion was never in danger because you weren't good enough." I looked at him. "I know." "And the rumors?" "I know." He smiled. "That's new." "What is?" "You didn't ask me if people still believed them." I thought about that. He was right. 6 months ago I would have. No. I didn't care. Let them talk. I knew who I was. That was enough. That night I drove home and found Mom waiting in the driveway. She had brought dinner. I opened the window. "What's this?" "Food." You brought food. Yes. I narrowed my eyes. Are you trying to ask for something? She laughed. No. I smiled. Progress. She rolled her eyes. Your father says I have to prove I can do nice things without attaching conditions. I laughed. That sounds like Dad. He handed me the bag. Then she looked serious. Ella. Yeah. I'm proud of you. I froze. The words landed differently than I expected. Maybe because I had wanted to hear them for so long. Maybe because I no longer needed them. But I still appreciated them. Thank you. She nodded. Then said, and I'm sorry. I swallowed. For everything? For most things. I smiled. That's a start. He hugged me. And this time I hugged her back without feeling like I owed her anything. Later that evening I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my old social media post. I opened it. The picture of the keys was still there. The caption still said, 8 years of hard work. Today I got the keys to my own office. I almost deleted it. Then I stopped. I smiled. I left it exactly where it was. Because now those keys meant more than a promotion. They represented the day I finally stopped asking whether I was allowed to be proud of myself. They represented every late night. Every rejection. Every criticism. Every time I wanted to quit. Every time someone told me to be smaller. And they represented the choice I finally made. To stop shrinking so other people could feel bigger. Looking back, the promotion wasn't the greatest thing that happened to me. The greatest thing was discovering that I didn't need my family to validate the life I built. I could love them without rescuing them. I could forgive them without giving them control. I could celebrate myself without feeling guilty. And I could finally hold those office keys without wondering whether someone else thought I deserved them. Because I did. I had earned them. Not through luck. Not through connections. Not through favoritism. Through 8 years of showing up when nobody was watching. Through learning. Failing. Starting over. And refusing to quit. Sometimes the people closest to you will tell you that your success is no big deal. Sometimes they will call it luck. Sometimes they will tell you you've changed. Maybe you have. Maybe that's the point. Maybe growing means becoming someone who no longer accepts the role you were assigned. I thought my promotion was about getting a better job. It wasn't. It was about finally realizing that my life belonged to me. And when I look back at that photo of the keys, I no longer see a woman trying to prove something. I see a woman who finally understood something simple. You don't need permission to be proud of what you built. And you don't have to destroy yourself to keep your family comfortable. I still love my mother. I still love my sister. But now I love myself too. And that changed everything. So the next time someone tells you that your achievement is no big deal, remember this. They don't get to decide the value of what you survived to accomplish. Only you do. And sometimes the healthiest response isn't arguing. It isn't revenge. It isn't proving them wrong. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is quietly keep the keys and unlock the door to the life you earned. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments.